As a leader, we know that it's crucial to develop a growth mindset and personal resilience, but it's not always easy. But what if we were to look at driving revenue growth through the lens of brutal honesty and personal resilience? Could we make a case for it? Could we invest in developing these characteristics? The idea may sound nice, but I was wondering if we could put some numbers around it. So I'm looking for some research, and here's a bit of what I found. A Harvard Business Review study found that 58% of leaders struggle with resilience, and 71% find it challenging to maintain a positive attitude in the face of adversity. Another study by McKinsey revealed that only 30% of B2B companies have a clear, well communicated growth strategy, and only 26% have a culture that supports growth. Now, the benefits of embracing brutal honesty and personal resilience are significant. For example, a study by the University of Pennsylvania found that resilient leaders are more likely to achieve their goals, manage stress, and, more importantly, inspire their teams. And then a survey by the Economist Intelligence Unit found that 84% of executives believe that honesty and transparency are critical to building trust with their customers and stakeholders. So, what can we do to build on and leverage these characteristics to drive growth? Our guests can speak from experience, both personally and in business. But first, hello, welcome to the Predictable B2B Success Podcast, brought to you by Sproutwood.com. I'm Vinay Koshy, and our guest is Jason Shafton. Jason, would I be right in saying that you would characterize yourself as a growth marketer? So,
Yeah, I think that's right. And
no,
thanks for having me.
no
Happy
worries.
to be here.
Now, you're a 20 plus year veteran in growth. You've built billion-dollar businesses at the likes of Google, Paramount, DaVita, scale startups like Headspace, Soothe, and Heal, now acquired by Humana. In fact, at Google, you scaled the Google Ads platform, launched Google Music and Google Play. You also spent time leading marketing at Comedy Central, where you launched new seasons of South Park and The Daily Show, as well as new franchises like Broad City, Drunk History, and Inside Amy Schumer. Now, after co-founding Heal, where you help thousands of families get access to better health, you ran growth marketing at Soothe and Headspace, scaling those to millions of global users, and found yourself on speed dial with some of the top tech founders, investors, and CEOs asking for growth marketing support. I'm assuming that's where your current company, a growth consulting firm, Vincent Francois, got formed or created. I'm curious though, given your success with all these companies, was there a particular point where you came to the realization that at your core, you are a growth marketer?
I don't know if there was a point that I realized it. I think it's always just been something that I innately
Mhm.
enjoy doing and know how to do. Growing up, my dad was a marketing guy. He's obviously now retired, but he ran marketing in loudspeaker companies before there was home theater and then in home theater companies. And so I got a taste and exposure to that. And then I studied marketing at university and really realized that's what I know and
Mhm.
what I'm good at. And I think as consumers, we all think we understand marketing because we see ads all the time, and so that's what it is. And the combination of the art and science that comes with creating great growth marketing is what gets me super excited. And the growth side of it in particular, when it comes to like digital products and creating experiments and trying to measure what you're doing and understand what works and feeding that all back into kind of a framework that allows you to just keep iterating and getting better. I think that's the really fun part, and that's what drew me and kept me.
I know that you were getting lots of calls seeking advice and input for growth marketing strategies. Was that the primary reason for creating Winston Francois, or was there a particular event that led you to that decision?
That was the primary reason is folks who I had worked with saw that I knew something about this topic. And so they would send me other people that they knew that they needed help with, or if it was an investor, their other portfolio companies needed help. Founders would start new companies and need help. And it grew very organically. First as me advising and consulting, just as almost at a hobbyist level, just for fun and something to do on the side, and then became my day job a few years ago. And it's the best. I like to say it's the best job I never had because I it doesn't really feel like working in it. It's certainly a nice way to be my own boss and work with a lot of companies and solve a lot of hard problems.
Given your journey to date, what would you say is your personal area of strength?
I think my superpower is helping to connect the dots and build really high performing teams. So I've been able to see inside of organizations like Google and Headspace, people that are just super, super smart and talented. I can think of times at Google where I basically every meeting felt like I was the dumbest person in the room. And that was a great feeling to be surrounded by such smart people. So I feel like at this point I have a really good eye for talent and understanding kind of the strengths and weaknesses of people to be able to create complementary teams of diverse perspectives and interesting ways of thinking to put together a sum of the parts that is greater than them on their own. The 1 + 1 = 3 situation where I feel like I can assemble a team that is going to deliver outsized results for any given business. And so that's the genesis for this business now that I lead is I can put a bunch of people together and partner with the company and help shape their growth for the years to come.
And in that area of strength, what would you say something that businesses don't know but should?
I think businesses do not spend enough time getting to know their user, their customer. I like to say that growth and marketing come down to really three foundational questions. What are we selling? Who is it for? Why should they care? Just over and over again, repeating those things in your head. And the who is it for part, I think, is often where people spend not enough time. We spend a lot of time, I see a lot of companies spend a lot of time thinking about what are we selling and what is our product? And it's like a little bit navel gazing and in our own heads. We're so excited about the thing we made. And then there's also the how do we tell people about it? What should we say? Let's describe it. And not enough time is spent on who are people that actually want this thing? What is the job to be done? What are they hiring this product or service for? And how can we do a really good job of delivering against those expectations? And then it really just comes down to explaining to them why they should try it.
Now, you've had some personal challenges in your journey to date. I'm curious, how would you say that these challenges have influenced your leadership style and business philosophy? Because certainly we can, at an intellectual level, understand that resilience and having gumption to press forward is important, but it'd be interesting to understand how your challenges have really shone a sort of a different light to those aspects and why you think they're particularly important when it comes to growing revenue within the business.
I've been through, everyone has challenges. I think that's the thing that I've learned is everybody is going through something. My challenges, while they have been hard at times, I think in my family we lost twins at 20 weeks pregnancy last year, and 5 years ago, 6 years ago now, I was diagnosed with a degenerative retinal disease. As a marketing guy who makes things and tells stories, I'm losing my vision. But despite those challenges, I think the resilience that you're talking about and that you started this conversation with really comes from a deep understanding of ourselves that results from experiencing loss or trauma or challenges. So how I bring that to the environment that I find myself in working with a company is realizing that anybody that I'm partnered with, and whether that's the leadership team, their investors, board members, or the individual contributors in the organization, everybody's got something going on, something you can't see under the surface that makes their life more challenging. Nobody has a perfect life where there's nothing wrong and everything's going swimmingly. And so when you start to realize that everybody's going through something, I think you handle interactions and people differently, and you approach things from a position of empathy and giving the benefit of the doubt and assuming good intent. And the way that translates into business results is when people are cared for and they feel seen and heard and understood, and you give them the space to do their best work and the understanding that sometimes that's not possible and we'll get through whatever is going on together. It allows people to feel empowered and supported so that they can show up and do things that are extraordinary or maybe even were seemingly impossible. I've been in these startup environments and tech companies where they're literally building the future. And I think about all the folks that are building AI and the latest hardware and humanoid robots and people that are creating impossible things. And work is sometimes when you're having a really hard time an escape and a way to to get away from the challenges of the personal life and explore the possibility of the thing that you're creating and building with your coworkers that maybe is a positive distraction as opposed to some of the maybe more negative distractions we sometimes find ourselves exploring.
Could you share a specific moment where your personal resilience has directly impacted a business decision or strategy?
Yeah, a few things. So I after losing twins last year, I my wife and I very fortunately got pregnant again about 4 months later and decided to make a film to celebrate her this
Mhm.
pregnancy. And given the business that I'm in, which is to create growth and marketing campaigns for other businesses, this was a uniquely personal statement that we were building together. And it turned into this parody of a Super Bowl ad from 20 years ago with Paris Hilton dancing around on a car as she washed it, eating a cheeseburger. This is my wife's idea, by the way. And so we made this commercial basically because I get out of hand, I go over the top. But the result of that was this creation of a narrative and a story that we put out into the world that we got back so much positive feedback from people who had similarly experienced a child loss or pregnancy loss. And also, to answer your question, this film and video that we put out there caused us to get inbound interest in this business that I've built. People are excited about our ability to make things like that. And so they said, hey, can you build stories that are funny and interesting and we'll get people to stop the scroll on Instagram and TikTok and LinkedIn or YouTube? And of course, yes, that's what we do and we can help with. So that was a cool thing that happened recently. But I think in general, what I've been through thinking about like my time at Headspace was shortly after I was diagnosed with my eye condition, and meditation was a part of my coping mechanism, and so I was able to bring that storytelling to life in the way that we went to market with how Headspace can help people. And we were able to grow that business tremendously as a result of thinking about our users and what they're going through and how meditation is literally capable of saving and improving lives. And that story and that narrative was an important piece. And I hear it all the time when I talk to people years later. I don't work at Headspace anymore, and people work at Headspace. Oh, I love Headspace. I use it all the time.
So, my takeaway would be that you would encourage leaders to really embrace their struggles and craft it into the overall narrative of the business journey as well. Would you provide any other advice to leaders who are facing significant personal struggles while trying to grow their businesses?
Don't be afraid to be vulnerable. It's okay to
Mhm.
share your vulnerability with your team, with your partners, even with your customers. It makes you human. I think people are off put by folks who pretend that everything's okay or seem like there's
Mhm.
nothing wrong. It's better to just be your authentic human.
In your point of view, what would separate a great marketer from an average one, especially in the B2B tech space?
Yeah. In B2B tech marketing, the difference between a great marketer and everyone else is the ability to do the unexpected. B2B marketing is consistently
Mhm.
boring and uncreative, unimaginative, and great marketing is you're zagging when everyone's zigging. You're building a you're building a story and a business around real customer stories and experiences and the transformation that your product and service has delivered to those customers. It's not just the demand generation, account based marketing, content marketing, lifecycle nurture, demo to close, funnel. There's system design and process those are table stakes. You need to understand how to do those things and execute the demand gen programs effectively to scale a business and sales led marketing programs when it comes to B2B tech marketing. But if you really want to be different, you need to look at some of the players that are just absolutely crushing this. So think about Stripe. I hold them up as an absolute killer example of just incredibly good marketing and brand, and just very clear storytelling. Their mission is to increase the GDP of the internet. Super clear what they're doing
Mhm.
and why. And they've been very developer focused from day one, just make it really easy for people to integrate their APIs and use their payment stack. And then they've expanded vertically very successfully expanded horizontally, I should say, into different payments categories. I used Stripe Atlas to start a business. And I just think if you're looking for like example of incredible B2B tech marketing and brand work and go to market work, Stripe is a great example. Another example of a company that's been doing it a very long time, very successfully, is Salesforce.
So,
They have Dreamforce, and they have created an entire ecosystem around their business. If you're not building a platform in B2B tech marketing,
mhm.
that's okay. If you have a point solution or something that's vertical SaaS, that's okay. But if you can create a community around your product, if you can make your product a destination brand, an offering that partners well with
Mhm.
everybody else, plays nice in the same box, and is a really central piece of an industry, a category, you can establish yourself as a leader. So when you think about like traditional B2B tech marketing is the things I mentioned before. It's like demand gen and lead gen and nurture and account-based marketing and content marketing and demos that turn into closed won business. But if you want to win and do something really different, think about traditional media channels and breaking out of some of the norm and the standard operating procedure and show up in the real world in innovative ways, do things that don't scale, buy outdoor ads. You look at Monday.com or Ramp that have just absolutely crushed it using out of home
Hmm.
advertising. Think about tactics that maybe are not something that your competitors are doing and show up in a place that is unexpected and grab attention and interest that way.
Brilliant. I can't say I'm familiar with Stripe's marketing. Are there perhaps a couple of examples that come to mind that perhaps we could go look up?
Yeah. So I think when I describe Stripe's marketing, I think I would look at specifically their
Mhm.
product marketing. So the way that they're positioning and messaging their different products and how, so if you just go to stripe.com and explore their website, I
Okay.
think that they've done a tremendous job. Former Stripe marketer, Krithika, left and is now the head of marketing at OpenAI, just
Right.
to give you a sense of
Mhm.
how good that team is and was. So I think from a product marketing perspective, Stripe is a great example of how to do a good job communicating the value of your product. When I think about product marketing, I think what are the aspirational reasons to believe in your product? Hey, we're
Mhm.
increasing the GDP of the internet. And what are the functional reasons to believe? We make it super seamless to drop our code onto your product, your service, your website, and accept payment immediately and start making money and manage that
Mhm.
payment, right? Like those are functional reasons to believe in the brand. And then on the Salesforce example, like creating a movement, a community around your products, like they've done. I think Dreamforce is actually happening right now as we record this. And so that's another example of really strong marketing, this community building. And then the third example that I just gave you was brands like Ramp and Monday that are doing out of home campaigns. I was in the
Mhm.
airport the other day and I walked right past the giant Ramp billboard and I was driving down the 405 here in Los Angeles, and there was a big Monday billboard. Those are expensive
Yeah.
tactics, but if you play them right and you get in front of the right audience and the decision makers that you're looking for in those airports and on those freeways, that can be very
Super.
effective.
I'd like to unpack this a little more. When it comes to crafting compelling narratives, a fundamental level, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, is the need to understand your audience. Now, most companies, just based on my personal experience, would say that they're fairly empathetic. My point of view, they're probably not so empathetic in that they don't necessarily, they have volumes of data. They don't necessarily understand the pain points. How do you help companies truly understand their customers or ideal customer profiles? And in order to begin to pick out the elements of a narrative that would resonate with them.
Yeah. So there's two ways that I
Mhm.
recommend companies do this. One is third-party research and just market
Mhm.
research in general, where you can just go and understand who's in the market today, what do the existing customers look like, what are their needs. In certain cases, you can even go on sites and read
Mhm.
reviews of products and understand consumer sentiment and build a baseline understanding of the market, the potential customer kind of hone in on an ICP, ideal customer profile, and maybe even resulting personas. That last part's more difficult with third-party market research and just assessing what you can see without doing it yourself. And then the second piece is first-party research, which I highly recommend to anybody that's building something new, especially if they're trying to do something innovative that hasn't been done before and relies heavily on technology. So that first party research can take also two forms. One is qualitative, kind of focus group style or one-on-one user research, where you actually allow people to touch and feel a product or a prototype version of that product and record those sessions and get that feedback and take detailed kind of notes on where do people get stuck, what are the questions they have, what are their demographics and psychographics. Are these people looking at prospective customers, people that maybe are in certain decision maker roles in organizations, and digging in and building some personas around those archetypes based on what you learn in those qualitative sessions. And then there's the second part, which is quantitative. You can do large kind of surveying to an audience. There's plenty of vendors that do this, allow you to solicit people based on certain criteria. Are they in a procurement role inside of a mid-market company that's doing at least $5 million in revenue a year? We want to talk to those people. We want to get their feedback, and we want to survey 1,000 of them so that we can get statistically significant data on the tools that they're using and what they're interested in, and other information that will help support our development of this honing in on personas. And then the last part of your question, we take all of that research, third party market research, first party qualitative and quantitative research, and you stitch it together to start to complete a picture of your ICP and personas. And then from there, you should have a pretty good sense of what do they care about. And so how can you communicate the value that your product delivers and how it meets them where they are with what they need. Again, going back to that product marketing of the aspirational reasons to believe in your product as well as the function.
Makes sense. As growth marketers, though, there's probably a lot of pressure to deliver results quickly. What you've
Yep.
described probably takes a fair bit of time, I would imagine. Have you been able to condense it down to a point where you can quite quickly start spinning up stories that resonate, or do you look at other elements to score a few wins in the interim while this process gets to completion?
Yeah. I think at a minimum that what I described takes 6 weeks, typically more like 8 or 10 weeks to really get a good picture, but can be done faster with a lot of resources and
So, yeah.
focus and attention, but from a design and research team and a product team. But to your point about quick wins, I think if you have an existing product in market today, you can talk to your existing customers, you can learn things from them, and you can apply those learnings immediately to the marketing strategy and tactics that you're deploying. And if you want immediate business results, don't we all? But you can leverage things like performance marketing to test messaging very quickly in market, right? Whether that's on a LinkedIn or Meta or Google Ads, you can build campaigns that test a variety of different messages, positioning, imagery associated with your offering, and try to pair that with specific audiences or allow those algorithms to find you the audience you want. Another thing I've seen companies do well and helped companies do is fake door testing. Take people to a landing page for a product or feature that hasn't been released yet, and send them there and just capture email address and interest, or even have them click through on a pricing table so you can see which price they're interested in. And then after that, they say, all right, the product's not available yet, but we understand that you're interested in it at this price. We'll contact you as soon as it's available. Those are all ways to get some signal, both quantitative and qualitative, of what people think of your messaging and the way you're wanting to go to market in parallel to doing more detailed
So,
research.
I wonder if you subscribe to the notion of show, don't tell. And if so, how does that play out in the narratives that you're creating?
Yeah, I definitely do. I think whenever possible, let people play
Mm.
with your product, right? I think I see a lot of B2B tech marketing book a demo is the kind of end action you want the user to take when they get to your website. That kind of sucks because as a user, I'd like to just try the product. Put me in a sandbox, give me
Mhm.
an environment I can play with, let me try for free, have a free trial, make it easy for me to sign myself up, and then have your customer success team, your sales team reach out and say, hey, how's it going? Can we help you? I think that's a key way to get people into an experience and get results and allow them to see it and show it versus tell. And then there's, of course, like in advertising, you can show by letting other people speak for you. So it's a little bit of showing and telling. Here's a company, Acme Incorporated, that took advantage of our product and had this amazing result and success, and this is why it's great. And then cut to visuals of the product and how they're using it. I think you do a little bit of showing and a little bit of telling to create compelling narratives and kind of customer testimonials and case studies that make it the case for your offering.
Absolutely. Another question is around how do you determine whether a product or a service is ready to scale? Are there particular indicators you're looking for?
Number one is product market fit.
Yep.
Do you have product market fit, and are you connecting with an audience in a way? Are people absolutely raving about you unprompted? Is there really high customer satisfaction and net promoter score? These are all leading indicators that things are working well and can give you the confidence to then scale and spend additional resources on growth and marketing to take advantage of the fact that you've got something that's working well. I think in subscription businesses in particular, retention and churn rates and seeing that you have very high retention is another really good signal, more of a lagging indicator, but a way to understand that what you're doing is working and that people are willing to pay. And that helps you understand, can I scale this? Can I invest more?
And net promoter score, I get the rationale behind it. However, going back to this idea of being empathetic and truly understanding your customers, if I were to say to a company, let us speak to your customers, most of them would tend to shy away from that and say, that's a little bit difficult, it takes too much time, etc. But to me, that the availability of customers to be willing to jump on a call with you would indicate that there is a good connection beyond just product market fit. Is that something you're looking for, or are you just happy to go with product market fit and scale that while building up the personal connections at an ongoing basis?
I think anecdotal customer feedback and customers that are willing to talk to you are great. Sometimes you'll learn the most from the customers that aren't
Mhm.
willing to talk. And so finding a way to incentivize them to talk. Research teams often give incentives, whether it's just an Amazon gift card or something, to get people on a call to learn more. And some people will respond to a digital survey and not be willing to get on a call. So just trying to tease out and pull out that feedback is critical. But I think product market fit, I always hear people say, you know it when you see it. Business is growing, customers are happy, people are sticking around, you have product market
Okay,
fit.
fair enough. So you've got the foundations for potential growth. What would you say are foundational elements for a successful growth flywheel?
Yeah. So obviously every business is different, but foundational elements for a successful growth flywheel include a brand that plays well in your space and you have a clear brand
Mhm.
promise and platform and a story that you're telling that is compelling and resonates with your audience. It includes great product marketing, which is like your messaging architecture, your positioning. At Google, it was know the user, know the magic, connect the two. So you have done an excellent job of understanding those things and then building communications around the connection of your magic and your user, your customer. And that includes things like the right contextual messaging and positioning for specific channels and audiences. And you've done significant testing and identified the right way to talk that is effectively acquiring new customers and acquiring the right customers that are high LTV, high
Mhm.
retention, high value, not the ones that are going to churn or not come back. The I think foundationally is for growth is very important to have a strong point of view on your channel strategy and the channels you're going to leverage. And so this is a media mix question of what is the emphasis on organic and SEO, content marketing, social marketing. If you have an app store optimization, like how are we leveraging non-paid channels to drive growth and making sure that there's a flywheel set up to capitalize on people that are showing up at our front door. Conversion rate optimization is an area that's really important, making it easy for folks to convert. We talked about booking a demo. Book a demo is your ultimate action. Great. Otherwise, start a free trial, check out a demo environment, sign up now. Those are all things that you can experiment with and build great CRO programs to maximize the traffic that shows up on your website or in your application and converts it. Um, Supporting all of this is best in class
Mhm.
creative. So having great design and copy that helps communicate effectively, gets out of the way, is simple, beautiful, articulate, and clear. And I like really concise. Apple is the gold
Mhm.
standard when it comes to marketing. And they just did their big iPhone 16 event, and they look at all the marketing around that. It's just super slick. So be like Apple. And then lifecycle marketing is an essential piece. So, how are you communicating with somebody before they become a customer and they share their contact information with you? And how do you communicate and nurture them to become a customer and then to retain them and keep them engaged? And if they leave, what are you doing to communicate with them to win them back? What is your strategy around public relations and communications? How do you leverage earned media and communicating with the press and media and putting your brand out there on in major publications and outlets to get coverage? And then with all of these things, how do you measure performance and track it? Data and analytics, business intelligence, attribution, media mix modeling, and multi-channel funnels. Like, how do you think about influence of what I just said, PR, communications, and your organic channels and your paid channels? They all work together to drive growth. That's like the full menu and full stack of foundational growth systems and infrastructure that I see as essential to a strong growth flywheel.
All what you said would certainly make sense. And I guess from a leadership level, I'm curious, do you actually have conversations with executive leaders around the end goal, so to speak, for the organization? Because it's one thing for leaders to often say, we need to grow and grow fast, or these are the objectives growth objectives we need to reach. But often there's not much of a discussion or clarity around what the end goal is in order for your team and the executive leadership to have a good conversation around where our focus should be so that the ultimate end goals can actually be achieved.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's exactly right, and something that I definitely do in my role as a fractional chief marketing officer, and that my
Mhm.
teams do when they work with startups and companies. We often are brought in by the investors or board members, and so we have a seat at that table. And when it's unclear what the objectives are, we push for that clarity
Mhm.
because we can't be effective if we don't know what we're marching towards. So one of the exercises I like is a North Star. What is that most important metric to us that we're all going to go? Is it revenue? Is it customers? Is it a compound annual growth rate? Is it month over month growth? Weekly active users? What is the North Star metric that we're holding ourselves to? I think with Facebook, it was monthly actives, right? And they wanted to get to 1 billion MAUs, and then they did that, and now what? 2 billion people a month use Facebook, whatever it is. Basically, everybody that's on the internet. So what are those? What is that North Star for a business? And then what are the supporting KPIs? And we talked about this earlier. What are the leading indicators and lagging indicators that help us understand how we're progressing towards that North Star? And once we have alignment as a leadership team and with any kind of board or investors, then it's a question of helping everyone on the team
Mhm.
understand what we're going to do to help move those metrics and what we're not going to do, which is equally, if not more important. Oftentimes, I'll come into an organization and there's a lot of things happening, but very few of those things are actually moving the
Correct.
needle and
Mhm.
moving the business forward.
I would imagine then that feedback loops are particularly key to this whole idea of building out not just flywheels, but also to the overall idea of revenue growth. How do you ensure for that?
Sorry, can you
Sure.
repeat the
I
question?
was just saying that I would imagine that well constructed feedback loops are key to the whole process that you're describing, as well as to the notion of ensuring revenue growth in a sustainable way. How do you ensure for those
Yeah.
feedback loops?
Yeah, that comes back to reporting. Like, we have to have really strong understanding of the performance of the business. The implementation of a good BI tool is where I often start. Are you using a Tableau or a Google Data Studio, formerly Looker, or any of the other products out there that help visualize? And then have you set up a data tech stack and data engineering so that all of the important metrics are being piped into those systems so you can analyze, here's what we're spending on our marketing efforts and this is what we're getting out the other side. Here are our product analytics. We can understand how people are using our product and what retention looks like and engagement. And I think in terms of that feedback loop, making sure that information, there's executive level dashboards and then the operator level dashboards that help us operationalize the business and improve it and measure performance. And I think where I've seen this done well, there's something stops working in a dashboard or an ad goes offline and people know about it immediately. There's alerts and signal that, hey, there's that number's wrong or that something looks funny there, and it can be addressed quickly. And where I've seen it go badly is where the organization's flying blind and the data is not available or not there or not structured in a way where you can see it, and then days or weeks go by before somebody realizes, oh, those campaigns have completely stopped because our last payment to Google was declined, and so they shut our ads off. And I think that's the kind of stuff that's really important and can be really frustrating when you feel you don't have the visibility you need to operate.
Certainly. Now, would you say that as a growth marketer, there's also a component of internal marketing within the organization? And if so, what does that look like in order to ensure that on an ongoing basis, everyone's on board and there's that continuous buy-in?
Yeah. Internal communications can be as important, if not more important, than external. I think to get anything done in a complex organization today, you have to have cross-functional alignment and buy-in with the team. So if you're a growth marketer, you're often working very closely with the product team to make sure that kind of product-led growth functionality and growth loops and features can exist to support the growth marketing efforts. I think being able to succinctly and clearly communicate, not write novels of emails, not do lots of make work or require lots of make work as a leader, that tons and tons of decks and presentations where people are spending more of their time presenting internally than they are executing. That's like the death knell for an organization from my experience. So how can you effectively communicate the goals and what's needed to get there and allow people to do their best work? Take the Amazon Jeff Bezos memo approach, write a in prose a few page document that articulates your strategy, what you're trying to do, what are the metrics we're trying to move, how are we going to measure success, when are we going to report back, what are we blocked on, what do we need help with, and allowing people to communicate in writing and have everyone on the same page and read what's been written. Those are all things that I've seen work very well to ensure tight internal communication that then affects the actual output.
My head's spinning at the moment. There's a whole bunch I'd love to explore, but let's look at wrapping up. We touched upon brutal honesty, and it's something you've mentioned in a previous conversation in your work with clients. Can you walk us through how you approach this delicate balance of truth and tact?
My favorite book on the subject is Radical
Yeah.
Candor by Lon Scott. It's great. She used to work at Google. We were there around the same time. And I always err on the side of truth over tact, maybe to my detriment, but I think it's important to be honest and to tell people what you really think in a way that they can hear. Oftentimes, feedback is delivered poorly or unconstructively, and that results in people having hurt feelings or being unable to take the feedback in a way that they can address it or respond to it effectively. So I like the idea of being radically candid with someone around whatever the performance issue is or whatever the kind of underlying feedback is, in a way that is oriented around not the person as an individual but the results that we're trying to achieve together, allowing them to really understand that this feedback is coming in the context of the business and what we're trying to do together. And it's important that we make these changes or address these things so that we can get to where we're going together, as opposed to saying it in a way that people hear you're bad, you're not capable, your work sucks, anything along those lines that results in them being demotivated, losing the ability to correct and move in the right direction. So I think tactful truth, if I had to summarize, tactful truth
Certainly.
telling.
Would you say that you need to set expectations before you get to a point where your team is ready for this sort of brutal honesty, or the combination of truth and tact, as you've put it?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think it's partially just the result of needing to give permission for everyone to do that. And again, going back to leadership and vulnerability, being the one to be first to receive
Yeah.
it, like asking for feedback feedback as a leader, having one-on-ones with your direct reports or even skip levels. What can I do better? What am I not doing well? Being open to hearing that and saying nothing you're going to say to me is going to hurt my feelings or change my opinion of you. I need to know so I can be more effective. So please share openly and honestly. And then hopefully that opens the door to be able to do it in reverse and to create within the team the kind of psychological safety so that they can share hard feelings.
If with this whole perspective of growth marketing and bringing in brutal honesty and resilience into the picture, do you find there's perhaps a couple of aspects that doesn't get talked about very much? If so, what would they be?
I've covered a lot of ground here. I think I'll go back to probably what historically wasn't talked about much in growth marketing, or maybe was not considered growthy enough because it was too old school, offline, untrackable. But when we think about TV, radio, print, out of home, traditional channels, everything old is new again. If you look at some of these more modern tech brands, there's folks now that have gotten off of the Google Meta ads flywheel and said, we're going to try some more traditional tactics and measure. And we're going to use as much measurability as we can. We'll use modern out of home agencies that can measure density of new users based on location of the ads. And we'll leverage connected TV and OTT over the top TV ads and kind of play in these spaces that we can do more measurement of what have been traditionally unmeasurable
Mhm.
media to drive growth. So I think that's one area. And then I think another thing that isn't talked about that's related to that is, do you, like, it's almost like a four-letter word or the elephant in the room, but can you exist and thrive in a world without buying media on Google and Meta?
Hmm.
Can you reach your audience in ways that don't require you to succumb to the big two ad
Mhm.
platforms?
Certainly. And I know you touched upon community, but is there, let me rephrase this, is there perhaps a prerequisite in order to find not just a topic, but a real need that bands people together around a particular cause or mission that results in community?
Yeah, so what you're describing, there's two things. There's internal community within an organization to get
Hmm.
something done that's impossible. If you read the Elon Musk biography, there's just the incredible team that came together to make
Hmm.
SpaceX work, right? And the number of times they were on the brink of complete and total failure and bankruptcy. So there's that kind of community of like colleagues banding together to do the impossible, literally rocket
Hmm.
science, right? And then there's the community that forms around products. I love looking at Reddit because all the kind of best products have these Reddit subreddit communities that spring up around them. These are unofficial, moderated by users and customers who are obsessed with the product, whatever it is, and talking about it all the time and standing by for new features and announcements and supporting each other. I think if you can draft off of that kind of energy as a brand and build a really compelling community engagement model where you can support your users in creating their own communities, but also maybe even build owned and operated communities, you can win. I think about the best example of this is like Yelp and Yelp
Hmm.
Elite and what they've done and the entire kind of cottage industry that's formed around it. It's even now a meme and it's been made fun of because people come into a restaurant and they act like they're a food reviewer and they say, I'm Yelp Elite. But the idea that you can launch a restaurant or a bar or a new venue and you can invite the most influential people in your city who are then going to review it, and that's going to cause it to have an outsized kind of organic reach as a new place.
Thank you for all this, Jason. If you were listening to this episode, what would you say would be your top takeaway?
Top takeaway is, what are you selling? Who is it for? Why
Mhm.
should they care? Don't ignore that middle question. Make sure you understand your customer, and then everything else will follow.
And if listeners are curious, want to find out more, or connect with you, where would you recommend they head to?
You can head to our website at wf.team/pod. That's wf.team/pod. happy to help you. Reach out, set up a call with me, and see what we can do to support you or
Okay,
your business.
we'll include links to that in the show notes. Is LinkedIn your go-to social media platform?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn and I'm terminally online. So drop
Okay.
me a note. I'm happy to help if
Okay,
I can.
brilliant. We'll include links to the show notes. Jason, thanks again. Much appreciated.
My pleasure.
Right.